I came across an article about a lady who had decided to go on holiday. She was from Asia. She wanted to go somewhere that was very different than her home, to experience something radically new and exciting. She decided that she didn't just want to go on a holiday. She also wanted it to be educational. She wanted it to be exciting. She wanted it to be interactive. And so she was booking tickets and trying to find flights, and she ended up finding a good deal in going to Iceland. And so she flew into Iceland. She had decided that she did not want to get lost. She wanted a guided tour. She wanted people who knew what they were saying, who knew the history and the geography of Iceland, and would be able to show her all the best things. So she then decided that she would book a bus tour. So with 65 other people, she would get on a bus, and there would be a bus driver, which is a security. There would also be a tour operator who would be able to be knowledgeable and wisely tell them what's on the left and what's on the right as they traveled around Iceland for a 10-day journey. The idea to her was just brilliant. She was so excited to be there, so excited to see new things, and to experience just a whole new culture. And so she flew in, she arrived, she joined with her friends on the bus. The first day they went to 3 different locations, volcano, an iceberg, and ended up looking around a forest. So they arrived to the 3rd stop, and the tour operator said, listen, we're going to stop here for 45 minutes. You get to look around and experience it, take some selfies. So she got her selfie stick and she's ready to take photos. Part of the reason that we go on holidays and we go on vacations is to try and make people back home that make them jealous that they're not with us. And so she wanted to take some amazing pictures. She was told as they pulled up in the bus that there was a restroom nearby and they could freshen up before they look at this final stop for the day. After this, they were told that they would go to the beautiful hotel and there would be a buffet and wonderful food to eat and a good night's rest before they begin again on the 2nd day of their tour of Iceland. So she was excited. She got off the bus. She walked into the restroom, and they had big mirrors on the side of the wall. And as she walked across the restroom, she realized, oh my goodness, my hair is like this. I've been leaning on the bus window. And so she didn't realize that her hair just looked terrible. So she quickly pulled out her brush and she brushed her hair. She tied her hair back. And then she thought to herself, well, if I'm going to take some selfies to send home to my parents and friends, I might as well put some makeup on. So she did up her face, and once she had done that, she realized it's getting a little cooler and getting darker, so she decided she would put on a warm jacket. So she did that, and next minute she looked at her watch and she realized, oh, I've taken up 15 minutes just making myself look wonderful. Now I have 30 minutes left to wander a little bit around and take some selfies. And so she quickly rushed out and went into the forest and had an amazing time. And obviously on these bus tours, people either love them or hate them, because maybe you stay too long in some locations and not enough time in others. And but there is a great security in knowing that you're with others. So she took her photos, and before she realized it, they were being called back onto the bus. So all 65 of them got back on the bus, and immediately the tour operator and bus driver got on at the front, and they didn't move. And so everybody's wondering what's happening. It seemed that they were ready to go, and yet there was no effort made to start up the engine. And as they looked to the front, they started to get more and more concerned. They could see there was some worry lines on the forehead of both the tour operator and the bus driver. They were whispering to one another. They were moving their arms around. There was deep concern in their gestures. And even just reading body language, people started to whisper to one another, what's happening? Do you have any idea why we're not going? This was our last stop for the day. I can't wait to be at the hotel. And finally, after a few minutes, the tour operator picked up the microphone and he turned it on and he said, I'm so sorry, we have a problem. We can't move on. Now, with a bus tour, the goal, unlike education, sometimes in higher education, our goal is to lose as many people off the bus as possible. So that we stick with the A students and put them at the very front of the class and ignore the majority of the other students, because the goal is to weed out the weak. And that's not the goal of a bus tour. The goal of a bus tour is to make sure that whoever's on the bus gets back on the bus and stays for the duration of the tour. And so the tour operator started to explain that they couldn't move on because there was somebody missing. And as they explained it, they made it clear that everybody who was on the bus would need to get off, because they needed to find this lost person. And so they formed these long lines and formed a search party. So now the tourists were no longer tourists. They were now part of a search party. And they began their search. It started to get colder. Our friend, this tourist, she was in the line with everybody else. And they were given a brief description of the person that was missing, her height, her name, a little bit about what she looked like. And everybody was searching, yelling this name in lines together. And our friend was looking to one side, and there was a young lady, and she's cold. And she looked to the other side, and there was an old man, and he was getting hungry and uncomfortable. And she got more and more concerned for the people on her right and on her left. And she's thinking, where is this lady? Why can they not find her? And just as she got more and more concerned, she started to realize, well, that the description is similar to me, and her name is not my name, but it sounds like my name. And she started to identify, which is the key to communication. And she was thinking to herself, if I was lost, how desperately I'd want to be found. And so she started to yell the name even louder. And they searched, I think, for 6 hours. I'll put the article below in the show notes so that you can read it for yourself. And after a few hours, they'd called the local police and the forestry services. So now the professionals were out, and they were joining them. By this time, they had their torchlights on their phone because it was dark. And they just continued the search. And at one point or another, this lady started to think to herself, well, the description is kind of like me. Like, this is a lady, she's about my height. She has the same color hair as me, about the same length of hair. Her name sounds similar to mine. And just as she's thinking this creeping idea comes in the back of her mind, and she goes, maybe there's a reason we still haven't found her. Maybe the reason we haven't found her is because this lost lady is actually me. And immediately she pushed the idea down, like that's insane. I've been here all the time. I've been with my fellow tourists on the bus this whole time for 6 hours searching, and yet she can't change that thought. She can't get rid of the thought. It just keeps coming back again and again. And she's thinking to herself, what are my options here? Do I hide behind a bush and then jump out of the bush and say, oh, you found me, and that might solve the problem, or what do I do? And so she can't get rid of this creeping idea that maybe it's her that they're looking for. And like that U2 song, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. This is now playing out in reality for her. And so she says to the old man and the young girl, and says, I just need to check something. I'll be right back. I just need to find the bus driver and tour operator. Do you know where they are? And so she manages to find the tour operator. He's standing near the police sheriff in the parking lot, and they still have very concerned looks on their faces. And she walks up to them and she says, do you know where the bus driver is? I just need to check something with you. And she proceeds to tell them that she thinks that what might have happened is that they might be looking for her, and she just needed to check, am I the person we're looking for? And so they look at her and they say to her, please, would you do a spin for us? And so she spins, and they take a close look at her, front and back and sides, and they're shocked. They go, it's you that we've been looking for. How could this have happened? How on earth could something like this have occurred? And so, as it turns out, she was the lost person. And the article was really riveting. I mean, by the time I got to this point, it's both wonderfully hilarious and of course this news went viral. It went all over the internet. You could imagine perhaps her parents sitting in Seoul in Korea, and they turn the TV on, and suddenly they see their daughter's picture. Less than 48 hours after her leaving home, she's now in this international incident. The title of the article, which I didn't share with you at the beginning, was "Lost Tourist Gets Lost Looking for Herself." And it's kind of ironic and hilarious and a little heartbreaking at the same time because, there's a number of things at play in this seemingly simple little story. There are cultural things at play. There's an awareness of people, noticing how they look, noticing what they look like in their bodies, even thinking about how someone might change, because transformation can occur in seconds or it can take decades. And in this instance, she had done such an amazing job of transforming herself in 15 minutes in the restroom of this scenic location. She had gone into the bathroom and completely changed her look. So there was a metamorphosis. And what the bus driver and tour operator and police sheriff was saying to her was, wow, we didn't even see you as the same person. So it's kind of like when you go to the gym and you see the head of a person and it looks like they had this kind of skinny body, and then suddenly they're all muscular and they've been working out at the gym, and this before and after picture where the only thing that would tell you that this is the same person is something that looks like a photoshopped head on the first image and a photoshopped head on the second image of a bodybuilder. And essentially what they were saying to her was, wow, you did such a thorough, good job of transformation. You went into that restroom like a caterpillar and you came out this beautiful butterfly. The transformation was complete. It was a total metamorphosis. And of course, she wasn't pleased by this result, realizing that she was the one that they were looking for all along. Now, I have lots of Korean friends, and they are often given a Korean name that Westerners can't pronounce, so they'll choose a Western version of that Korean name, so it's easier for people to be able to pronounce it well. And that's apparently what she had done in this instance. So it's kind of fascinating, and you're not sure who to blame, who should take responsibility for this situation. I mean, anybody who knows traveling with groups knows to count heads and to make sure to do a roll call. Maybe you read out the names and they all go, present, I'm here. But there was something drastically missing in this story that could have saved her from a lot of embarrassment. So this is where the story ends. Tourist gets lost looking for herself, shouting her own name in the forest, until she realizes maybe there's a reason we haven't found this lost lady. Maybe the reason is me, that I can be both lost and found at the same time and not realize. So it was fascinating. As I finished the article, I thought, wow, this is just where it starts to get interesting. Because she's going to have to get back onto that bus with the 64 other people. And none of them are very pleased with her anymore. Because obviously the first question they're going to ask as they're called back from the search party and they're told, good news, the lady's been found, they're going to ask immediately, well, where was she? And the young girl on this side and the old man on that side are going to say, no, we saw her this whole time. She's been searching for herself, yelling out her own name. And so I guess similar to parents on a flight, a long international flight, who have a little baby. I've heard of parents giving out candy to the people sitting around them because they want to give them something sweet as a form of penance for the crying baby that's going to be on their flight for 8 hours. And so she has to get back on this bus and apologize to everybody that she walks by, because she's going to have to be on that bus for another 9 days of travel together. These people signed up for a holiday. They didn't sign up to be in a search party for 6 hours looking for someone who is actually with them, looking for herself. So it's kind of this ironic story, but also just very vulnerable and very real and very human. And I think it's interesting. it's interesting from the perspective of education, where our goal is to lose as many people as possible, which is not the goal of Scripture. In fact, Jesus finds people, and he knows their name. He knows where they're from. He knows their parents. The same thing in the Old Testament. God finds a woman in the wilderness, and he knows her name. And so we need to pay more attention to who's on our bus. We need to pay more attention to who's riding with us, more attention to their humanity, more attention to an ability to know and to be known. And so I don't know, the next time that she booked a holiday, I'm sure she booked something quite different. She thought she was safe on a guided tour with a bus driver who would not get lost, and she found out she was very vulnerable and very unsafe in that scenario. The next time she booked a vacation, maybe she rented a car and she drove herself, and she made sure she had a GPS, so she knew when she was in the car and when she had stepped out of the car and was out of the car, so that she wouldn't get lost in the process. But as much as that's a funny story and kind of a hilarious one, it's also, it tells us a lot about being human, about how vulnerable we are at any given point in our journey, and that going to new places and experiencing new things can discombobulate us, can get us confused about where we might be and what we might be doing. And I think it fits well with what we just talked about with Jesus and the parable of the lost coin and the lost sheep, and also the lost son, that God is concerned about the lost and found of the universe, that's where he works, that he's trying to reconcile every human being back to himself. So as we consider this story, I just want you to think about what it might mean for yourself. I know at any given point in my life I can be very aware of either my lostness or the fact that I'm found, and in other areas I can be completely unaware of what's happening, of how God might be interacting with me. It's also interesting that when God comes back to the garden after the fall, his first questions are about lost humans and helping them to be aware of context. So he says to them, "Where are you?" And that question is not for his benefit, it's for their own. And he says to them, "What have you done?" And then he says to them, "Who told you?" And I think those questions are fascinating, because when we're lost, we need context. And in answering those questions for ourselves, we start to find that God is available to us, that he hasn't left us, that he didn't just start over and immediately move to plan B, an alternate universe where he has a better application process and better candidates and better students who actually survive the first few weeks of this course of understanding what it means to be human, what it means to be image bearers of God.